My fiancé said, "My ex is joining us for Christmas dinner, so please be mature about it." I smiled and said, "Of course, why not?" What she didn't know was that I had also invited her ex's fiancé. And the scene that unfolded at the dinner table, my family will never forget it. I'm 27, and I've been engaged to Claire for about 8 months now. We met 3 years ago at a friend's wedding, and honestly, it felt like one of those moments where everything just clicks. She works in marketing, and we had this natural chemistry that felt effortless from the start. At least, that's what I thought. Looking back now, I realize I was missing a lot of red flags because I was too comfortable in the relationship to question anything. Last October, about 2 weeks before Christmas planning started getting serious, Claire brought something up that made my stomach tighten. We were sitting on the couch on a Thursday evening, halfway through some show neither of us was really paying attention to. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to actually listen," she said, turning to face me. I set down my phone. "Okay, I'm listening." "My ex, Derek, is going through a rough time. His fiancée is leaving him, and he'll be alone for Christmas. My mom invited him to our family dinner, but he didn't want to intrude. She asked if I'd reach out personally and extend the invitation. I know it's weird, but..." She trailed off, gauging my reaction. Derek was her serious ex. They dated 4 years before breaking up about 2 years before we met. I didn't want to be the guy who made his fiancée choose between her ex and him. That seemed toxic and immature. So I smiled and said, "Of course, why not? Tell him he's welcome." Claire's face lit up with relief. "Really? Oh my God, thank you. He's going to be so relieved." What I didn't tell her was that in that exact moment, watching her relief and eagerness, I decided something. I decided to invite Derek's ex-fiancée, Victoria, to the dinner as well. Her name was Victoria. I knew about her because Claire had mentioned her a few times in passing, always with a certain defensiveness that I never quite understood. I didn't know Victoria personally, but I found her on Instagram through a mutual friend, and her account was public. I studied her photos for a while. She looked intelligent, kind, and sad in the most recent ones. I sent her a DM explaining that I was Claire's fiancé, that I'd heard about her situation, and that my family was having a Christmas dinner where she'd be welcome if she wanted to come. I told her it might be uncomfortable, but that sometimes being around people who didn't pity you felt better than being alone. She responded within an hour. "That's incredibly kind. Honestly, I'd love to get out of my apartment. Yes, I'll be there. Thank you for thinking of me." I didn't tell Claire because I wanted to see how the evening would actually play out. Part of me wondered if something was off about Claire's eagerness to have Derek there. The way she'd phrased it, the way my mom loved him, the way she was suddenly so concerned about his emotional well-being after years of not mentioning him much. It didn't sit right with me. The truth was, over the months leading up to this, Claire had been distant. Not dramatically so, but in small ways. She'd be on her phone a lot more. She'd leave the room to take calls. She'd get texts and smile at them in a way that felt different from how she smiled at my messages. Nothing conclusive, but enough to make me uneasy. And Derek had always been this lingering presence. They still followed each other on social media. When they ran into each other at a mutual friend's birthday party a few months back, Claire came home talking about how put together Derek looked, how successful he seemed now, how he'd apparently gotten promoted at his firm. The week before Christmas, I was at the gym with my brother, and I mentioned it. I mentioned that I'd invited Victoria without telling Claire. "That's kind of crazy, dude," he said, wiping his face with a towel. "What's your angle?" "I don't know. Don't I have one?" I asked, genuinely uncertain. "Clearly you do, or you wouldn't have kept it from Claire." He was right. I was keeping a secret, which meant I was operating from some kind of suspicion or intention that I wasn't fully admitting to myself. I was creating a situation deliberately to see what would happen. Christmas Day arrived, and my parents' house smelled like cinnamon, roasted turkey, and pine. My mom had decorated the place extensively. My dad was in the kitchen doing his thing, my siblings were setting up drinks in the living room, and Claire was helping arrange the table with meticulous care. Derek arrived first, around 4 p.m. He looked exactly like his Instagram photos, tall, fit, with a carefully maintained beard, and wearing what I'm sure was an expensive sweater. He brought wine and flowers, which my mom loved. Claire hugged him, and the embrace lasted maybe 2 seconds longer than a normal greeting, but I was watching for it. "It's so good to see you," Claire said, and there was brightness in her voice that I recognized. It was the brightness she reserved for people she was trying to impress, for people whose approval mattered to her. You too. Thanks for convincing me to come. I almost didn't, Derek said, and they fell into easy conversation like no time had passed. They stood together by the tree, and I found myself noticing things. The way they naturally angled toward each other. The way Claire laughed at something he said. A real laugh, not the polite one she'd been using with me lately. The way Derek's hand lingered on her shoulder for just a moment. I was standing by the archway to the kitchen, and my brother caught my eye from across the room. He raised his eyebrows in a way that said, "You seeing this?" I nodded slightly, and excused myself to the kitchen, my jaw tight. "Is Victoria here yet?" I asked my mom, checking my phone. "Who's Victoria?" my mom asked, confused. "Derek's ex-fiancée. I invited her." My mom's face did a complicated thing, cycling through confusion and concern. "You did what?" "I invited her. She's dealing with a tough time, and I thought it might be nice for her not to be alone." My mom opened her mouth like she was going to say something sharp, then closed it. "Okay, I guess that's thoughtful." The doorbell rang at 4:47 p.m. Victoria was nothing like I expected. She was petite, with dark hair and this air of quiet confidence. She was carrying a homemade cheesecake in a glass container and wore a simple black dress that looked elegant but not overdone. When my mom opened the door, Victoria's smile was nervous but genuine. "Thank you so much for having me. I brought a cheesecake." "I hope that's okay," she said, her voice steady despite the obvious anxiety underneath. My mom took it awkwardly. "Of course, welcome. Come in." I watched from the hallway as Victoria stepped inside and saw Derek across the room. Her face registered the surprise for exactly half a second before she schooled it into a pleasant expression. She looked at me, and in that moment, I saw understanding dawn on her face. She figured out what I'd done. "Derek." "Hi," she said, her voice carefully neutral but with an undercurrent of something else. Anger maybe, or resignation. Derek's face went pale. Actually pale. His eyes went wide, and he looked directly at me across the room with this expression of utter confusion mixed with something else entirely. Something that looked like anger. What's going on?" he asked, looking at Claire, then at Victoria, then directly at me. Claire's brightness dimmed immediately. She looked at me, and I saw the moment it clicked for her. "What did you do?" "I invited Victoria," I said simply, my voice steady. She deserved to be here. What happened next wasn't a dramatic scene. It was something quieter and worse than a scene. Victoria moved past Derek and introduced herself to my parents, as if she belonged there. My mom, picking up on the tension, tried to move everyone toward the dining room. Derek stayed frozen for a moment, then excused himself to the bathroom. Claire followed him upstairs immediately, and that's when I heard the first real fight. "Why would you do that?" Claire's voice was low and furious, muffled through the ceiling. "That's so fucked up, and you know it." "Why is it fucked up?" I called back from downstairs. "She's dealing with something hard, just like Derek is." "That's not the point." She came back downstairs, her face flushed, her eyes bright with unshed tears and anger. "You deliberately created a situation without talking to me. That's manipulative." "Is it?" I asked quietly, standing up to face her. "Or is it just honest?" She stared at me, and I could see her mind working. "Oh my God, are you seriously doing this right now?" "Dinner's ready," my mom called from the kitchen, her voice strained with the effort of pretending nothing was wrong. We all sat down around the table. Derek and Victoria were separated by my father and my sister. Claire sat to my right, rigidly polite but clearly angry. I was being a dick, and I knew it. Dinner was excruciating. My mom tried to make conversation about holidays. My dad asked Derek about his job. My brother deliberately tried to include Victoria in discussions about our family traditions. For about 20 minutes, we maintained this awkward politeness. Then Victoria turned to Derek and asked, very casually, cutting into her turkey, "So when was the wedding supposed to be?" Derek set down his fork carefully. "July, right?" "I've been thinking a lot about July," Victoria continued, still calm but with an edge. "Specifically, when you were in Cabo and told me you were in Miami for a work conference." The table went completely silent. "I've been thinking about what's real and what's not. About how some people are living double lives," Victoria said, looking directly at Claire. "Some people are better at hiding it than others." Claire went pale. "That's not fair," Derek said quietly. "I'm not taking anything out on anyone," Victoria interrupted. "I'm just stating facts. And the fact is, You're sitting at a dinner table with your current fiancé. You're sitting across from someone who clearly still has feelings for you, and no one's talking about it. My mom stood up abruptly. More wine, anyone? I watched Claire's face crumble. I watched her look at Derek, then at me, and I saw something in her eyes break. We need to leave, she said to me quietly. Now. Running? I asked. You don't get to humiliate me to prove a point, she said, her voice shaking. What point would I be proving? I asked. That something's been going on between you and Derek? Nothing's been going on, she said, but there was no conviction. Derek left within an hour. Claire and I left shortly after. The drive home was silent except for Claire crying quietly in the passenger seat. Update 1. After Christmas, everything moved very quickly. Claire didn't defend what happened. She admitted that she'd been unhappy and that reconnecting with Derek had made her realize what she was missing. He makes me feel alive, she said. We were sitting on opposite ends of the couch. Somewhere over the past 3 years, we became comfortable. And comfortable started to feel like bored. I didn't argue because part of me understood. So what do you want to do? I asked. I don't know. I don't want to lose you. But I also don't know if I want to marry you. We didn't break up that night. We spent 2 weeks in limbo, engaged but not together. Claire talked to Derek a few times, then realized that Derek wasn't actually interested in leaving Victoria. Victoria had decided to give their relationship another chance. Derek and Victoria went to couples therapy, and Derek stopped responding to Claire's messages. Claire realized she hadn't been in love with Derek. She'd been in love with the idea of Derek. By the end of January, we called off the engagement and put the apartment up for sale. Update 2. Derek called me in February. Why did you do that? He asked. Do what? Invite Victoria. Set up that whole thing. I told him the truth. Because I knew something was wrong, and I wanted to see what would happen. I wanted to see if you'd actually fight for Victoria. You didn't have to do it that way, he said. No, I didn't. But I'm glad I did. You needed to see that Victoria is worth fighting for. Derek was quiet. Victoria and I have been working through it. We're actually better than we were before. Good, I said, and I meant it. After we hung up, the anger I'd felt on Christmas had faded into something more like sadness. Final update. It's March now. Life has settled into a new normal. I moved back in with my brother. I've been going to therapy, which has been humbling. My therapist helped me see that I was looking for permission to acknowledge something I already knew. I was creating a moment where I didn't have to choose between being the cool, mature fiancé and being someone who trusted their gut. Claire and I haven't talked since the apartment sale. I heard through mutual friends that she's seeing someone new. I hope it works out. But I wouldn't want to be with someone who gets bored with comfort. Derek and Victoria got married in June. I saw the photos on Instagram. Victoria looked really happy. Derek looked like he'd finally understood that people who challenge you are the ones worth keeping. I learned that instinct is worth listening to, even when it makes you look crazy. I learned that sometimes you create chaos because you're desperate for clarity. And I learned that people who are right for you are the ones who choose to stay even when staying is difficult. I'm not proud of how I handled Christmas dinner. It was manipulative. But I'm not sorry either, because it forced everyone to stop pretending and start being honest. And in the wreckage of that honesty, something real was uncovered. Sometimes the end of something is the beginning of something better. Edit 1. A lot of people have asked if I regret inviting Victoria. I regret that the situation existed at all. But the act of inviting Victoria forced a reckoning that was overdue. The outcome would have been the same eventually, just slower and more painful. Edit 2. For anyone wondering about Claire and Derek now, they're not in contact. Derek decided to fully commit to rebuilding things with Victoria. Derek told me that what happened between him and Claire felt real in the moment, but wasn't real at all. It was a fantasy.